Hello again, everyone. This is going to be a continuation of the collective reading from the Capricorn perspective. I have some cards out on the table already. We're looking at the goal, whatever it is you need to negotiate with, and the advice for moving forward. And I got my little co-host Luna down here if you want to say hello. Hello. She's good. Okay. And then at the bottom of the deck, this card is going to show me what the universe thinks your superpower is, or wants to remind you what your superpower is. And that's coming up as the Ace of Cups. And then I have the 10 of Cups and the Hermit right behind that, right? So the 10 of Cups is very much so the energy of reaching the finish line, right? It's the proverbial happy ever after. But as the saying goes, the story does not end with happy ever after, right? It's like a new story begins, right? And with the Hermit behind it, it's kind of a continuation of the last reading, which was the Virgo reading, which was about kind of summiting a mountaintop, right? Once you do summit the mountaintop, where do you go from there? Oh, and that's interesting. The Ace of Wands behind it, right? So a lot of aces coming out. So definitely gathering your aces, right? Which is, it almost reminds me like in a video game, right? It's like you pick up your little tokens as you go, right? That you've just collected a lot of tokens. But particularly this Ace of Cups, which is a newfound sense of identity, right? And that's coming because of reaching the finish line, the success point with the 10 of Cups. And again, that's the same thing as this Hermit energy, right? Which is like summiting the holy mountain and making it to the mountaintop. And if you've ever seen that movie, Holy Mountain, I forget who is it, Jodorowsky or something is the name of the, I don't know. But basically they make it to the top of the holy mountain and they realize that there's just another mountain beyond it, basically. It's like you haven't actually reached the summit. It just kind of keeps going and going. And so that's the idea of once you reach the happy ever after, yes, it might be the end of the old story, but now a new story can begin. And what this is making me think of with this Ace of Cups is that a superpower that you have right now, or a very strong gift that you have right now, is the ability to reimagine yourself as the protagonist in your narrative, right? So if we're going to say that the old story is over, this does not have to be a continuation. It doesn't have to be a new chapter in the old story, nor does it have to be a sequel, right? You can completely reimagine yourself as a protagonist, right? How you operate, how you move, what you expect, all of those things. So that's what I'm seeing as an overall energy. In terms of the goal, we have the Knight of Wands. And the Knight of Wands is typically seen as like a very fast moving, impulsive, passionate kind of energy, right? But it talks about freedom of movement, right? Having the desire to move impulsively, spontaneously, right? It's almost like a fool energy in a type of way, because it's like now that you've reached this mountaintop, now that you've accomplished whatever it is that you've accomplished, it's kind of like wanting to get right out of the gate and do something in particular to kind of explore. It's an explorer energy, really. The Knight of Wands is very much so an explorer. It's like the curious cat, so to speak. That's what motivates the Knight of Wands is curiosity and impulse and senses and all of that. But what needs to be negotiated with is coming up as the Seven of Wands here, right? So both fiery wands energies. And what the Seven of Wands is talking to me about is an illusion of obligation, where it's like you want to pursue whatever this is that's lighting you up with the Knight of Wands here. It's like you want to impulsively pursue or get into your fool energy and just kind of move about the construct without any kind of restriction or plan or whatever it is. But this Seven of Wands is creating the illusion of an obstacle that needs to be negotiated with. And I'm kind of seeing it as like, again, like the illusion of obligation, where it's like these six wands are representing six quote unquote obligations or six little fires that you think you need to put out before you can pursue whatever this is. And there's a part of me that wonders if, well, I keep saying the illusion of obligation, right? So I guess that's a question to ask yourself. It's like, which of these things actually require your attention and dedication, and which are just things that you think you have to take care of, right? And what I mean by that is that it's like there's been a lot of things coming up recently in the collective that I've been seeing where it's like because we've always done things a particular way, or we've been on a particular track, there's this assumption that we need to stay on that same track and continue doing that thing because we've already made some sort of investment, right? It's like whatever was happening in this old story before we reach the finish line, right? It's like a loose end that you think needs to be tied up, or something that needs to be honored and continued and brought into this next story, and maybe it's just not compatible, right? So again, it's like the illusion of obligation. So I guess take an inventory of anything that is pulling at you, and really sit with whether or not it's something that you need to pursue and need to take care of, or something that you just feel, again, obligated to. It's kind of like, I think, was this the first reading that I put up, the collective Yay, We Broke the Matrix, or maybe it was the second collective, but it was talking about the toxic empress energy. I think it might have been the second empress, where we always talk about the toxic masculine, but we never talk about the toxic empress. And the toxic empress is somebody that prioritizes the comfort of others over the detriment of themselves, right? So it's giving me a vibe like that, where it's like something wants your attention because your attention is soothing, but it doesn't actually require it, right? Or vice versa, you are not required to give the attention to the thing, right? Because this Knight of Wands is reminding me of the final scene of the most recent Matrix movie, Matrix 4, where Trinity is like this close to taking the red pill and leaving the Matrix, right? She's this close to being impulsive and having that true freedom, spontaneity, fool energy. But as she does it, all the little fires pop up and her phone starts ringing, and then her ex shows up and all these other things, and it's like, oh, Trinity, we need you to move in this direction, we need you to do this, and oh, the school just called and little Timmy had a tooth fall out, whatever it is, right? It's like things that get thrown at you. Not that would be the thing that's the Matrix movie, right? So in our reality, it would more so be, you know, maybe you have something to do and you get an invitation to go somewhere that you know ultimately it's going to either drain you or whatever it is, that it's just like you don't want to give your energy to that thing, but you feel bad saying no, right? So it's things like that in particular that I'm talking about. And then the advice in terms of how we're rounding this out is the Page of Cups. And so that's coming back to this cups energy that's here, right? So everything we're wrestling with is fire. And then all of the advice is cups or water, right? So that's interesting to me, that it's like the remedy here has something to do with like an opposite energy, right? That it's like, it's almost like you're encouraged to maybe get more into your cups, right? Because again, the goal or the desire is this Knight of Wands, but it's being approached from a very fiery perspective. And as a result, it's kicking up whatever this is, right? So maybe there's a perspective flip that needs to happen that's more watery and emotional. I'm trying to think of like a better way to say that that's not so abstract, because what am I even saying, right? But the Page of Cups is about finding unexpected value in anything, right? That like you didn't exactly plan on finding this thing where you found it, but then all of a sudden it's like, oh my gosh, that was exactly what I was looking for, right? So there's something that's being, because now I almost want to go back and revisit these energies with the wands and say, like, I almost wonder if there's something in all of these wands that's being missed. And like, there's a lot of things that are maybe being pushed away necessarily, but maybe there's something caught in it that's like the dolphin in the tuna net, so to speak, that it's like there's something else that might be pushed away unknowingly, that you actually want to integrate into whatever this process is, right? So, because the advice is almost like let something surprise you, if that makes sense. It's like let something surprise you. But there's perhaps even, it could be a resistance to your own impulse, right? That, you know, you're activating this fiery, what am I saying? This fiery Knight of Wands energy, which is kicking up this resistance in the Seven of Wands. But the advice is step into the Page of Cups, right? So it's almost like, I don't want to say cool it down. I don't, well, let's pull some oracles and see what else the universe wants to say, because I don't know. She's stumping me. Capricorns, y'all are strange creatures, right? As a sea goat that talks. What even is that? Okay. Do. Ooh. Okay, so at the bottom of the deck here, the energy is sadness. What is that? And then the Knight of Wands is being clarified by a card that says, I'm guided by my higher self, which always wants the best for me. Seven of Wands is clarified by illumination. And then the Page of Cups is clarified by clarity. I'm sorry for the pause, but I'm kind of stumped and confused by the energy. Maybe that is the issue. Maybe the energy itself is confusing you and you're not sure which way to move because you want to move in this fiery direction, but then the advice is saying cups, right? And then the clarifier for that fiery impulse is, I'm guided by my higher self, which always wants the best for me. And so maybe that's it. It's like, because again, the Ace of Cups was clarified by sadness. And it says, I am a miracle of nature, right? So the Ten of Cups is a happy ending to a story that's usually not a happy story, right? It's the end of Noah's flood. It's the end of all of the Disney movies. I mean, by the time they get to the Ten of Cups, they've been through some stuff, right? So perhaps this newfound identity wasn't exactly an easy or graceful thing to acquire in terms of what you had to go through or witness or experience at the soul level, which could be why it's coming in with a degree of sadness, which is almost just like a cloud that could be kind of blocking the illumination, right? And illumination was coming in underneath the Seven of Wands, which is that thing that's being pushed against. So now that I'm seeing all of this, it's kind of like I want to say, you've reached this checkpoint. You have this desire to now go out and do the new thing, but then it kicks up the Seven of Wands, which I want to say might just be the memory of the last story, right? Where it's like, perhaps, because I know this happened to me in terms of illumination with the eclipse, right? Where it was like the eclipse happened, the veil dropped, and that was traumatizing in and of itself. I mean, the dropping of the veil and seeing the entire obstacle course, everything we were up against for what it was, kind of scared me back into the broom closet for a second. I'll say that much. So it could be an aspect of that where it's like you have this desire, this newfound impulse to pursue with all of this energy and passion and everything that's come in since the eclipse. But then there's this resistance of like, oh no, am I going back to whatever led to the Ten of Cups in the first place? And it's almost like the universe is saying, like, you'll be surprised, pleasantly surprised by the clarity that comes through when you do allow yourself to just follow your impulse, right? It's almost like I'm getting the idea of like a truffle hunting. I don't want to say a truffle pig, but you know what I'm saying. It's like you can sense something beneath the dirt, right? But it's like you have to dig a little bit. But once you do follow that impulse, follow your nose wherever it goes, it is going to pleasantly surprise you, right? But it's just a matter of kind of pushing through a fear threshold that's not actually a fear threshold, right? Because it's being clarified by sun energy and illumination and all of this, which should be so happy, but there's like a fear there, and I understand that because it's like, I think one thing that we condition ourselves to do, especially as like light workers, whatever you want to call it, is we condition ourselves not to get too invested in things that we love. because we're afraid that that thing we love could be turned against us. It's very much so the energy of like the James Bond archetype, right? In order to do the work that he needs to do, the most dangerous thing that he can do is fall in love, because then all of a sudden that becomes something that can be weaponized or used against him, right? So it's like, allow yourself to fall in love with whatever it is that you're falling in love with, because as it says, I'm guided by my higher self, which always wants the best of me. So perhaps you're looking at this right now and saying, is this a trick, a trap, an illusion? I don't think so. I think it's just a matter of like taking those first steps out of the bunker. I don't know why I'm getting that visual, but it's like you had to retreat into the bunker for a moment because the hailstorm was happening, and the tornado was passing through, and now it's like that eerie silence after the storm where like you're coming out of the root cellar and like, are we still in Kansas? Are we not in Kansas anymore? What's going on? So I hope that that was helpful, Capricorn. There's no extended for this, but if you're interested in your own personal reading, you can find all the info in the description box below. And I love you guys, and I hope I see you soon. Bye.